Good morning, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. We'll be getting started at the top of the hour, but I have a few fun intro questions I'm going to pop up. The first one's actually for your library. If you can pop in your home library in our Q&A field, that would be great. We're just curious because we're going across a huge system here, what branch you go to. So if you could just answer these if you're having fun, if you want to tell us what kind of titles you're looking for, like ebooks or audiobooks, and let us know what your home library is in that Q&A. Good, I already see some coming through. That's awesome. I know we're curious and your library is as well. And then as for the other questions, those are anonymous. We're just interested in seeing what you're hoping to get out of Libby. So thank you for joining us. We'll get started in about 2 minutes, but take your time, pop in that info for us. We appreciate you joining us on a Monday morning. Sometimes it's hard to get started on Mondays. Awesome, thank you everyone. For the other questions, 2 through 4, you can answer those directly in the poll itself. Just click your answer. But for your library, since I don't have a write-in option there, just pop that in the Q&A. Thanks, everyone. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Just taking some time now to get everyone warmed up here. Let everyone start joining the webinar. You shouldn't have to hit submit, Jean. You should just be able to choose an answer, but if it's not working, no worries. We'll look into that. All right, we are at 10 a.m., so I'm going to end these polls now. But if you are just joining us and you want to let us know which home library you're from, you can type your branch in that Q&A. Yeah, you probably have to answer all of them. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to get us started. You can keep popping in your library branch in the Q&A if you're interested in sharing that with us. But I'll get us rolling here. Thank you for joining our Learn Libby with the Experts webinar this morning. We greatly appreciate your attendance, and we're looking forward to sharing some information about the Libby app with you. So this morning, we are breaking our day up into 2 sessions here. We're going to start with the very basics you need to know in our Getting Started session. And then at 10:45, we will roll into a deep dive session where we look at some of our favorite tips and tricks within the Libby app. So let me get us started here. To start off our morning, my name is Joe, and I am a digital book specialist here at Overdrive. I'm one half of the digital bookmobile team. Normally, we travel across the US and Canada and visit libraries in person with our large roving truck to show everyone, just like yourselves, how to enjoy the Libby app. We're still staying safe at home until next year when we'll get started back up again. But I typically do all the planning for that tour route. And I'm here with my other half co-worker.
Hi, I'm Marissa. So Joe's responsibility is usually what I like to say, the unfun stuff. It's the budget and the planning of the tour route. And I get the fun job. I get to travel around to all of the different libraries across the US and Canada, and I get to teach people how to use the Libby app. So that is my role. And we've kind of taken my role and turned it into this webinar. So we're excited to be here today.
Yes. Well, thank you for that, Marissa. So we're going to go into getting started, but before we do that, just a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. We do have closed captions enabled, so if you need those, you can turn those on in your Zoom meeting controls by tapping on the box that says CC. If they came on automatically for you, you can turn those off there as well if you don't need them. You can ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar by tapping on the Q&A button in those meeting controls as well. That's your way to reach us. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be answering questions, and we'll do that throughout the entire presentation. So if something pops up, send it through and we'll get an answer to you. We are recording our webinar this morning, and you will receive that whole recording in an email tomorrow morning from Zoom. So you'll get that email, there will be a link, click through the link and you can watch that there. It expires after 30 days, but when you click through that link, there is an option to download and keep it permanently. With this in mind, because we have a lot of information that we want to get through this morning, and since you will be able to review that as necessary, just keep in mind, we recommend that you watch us as we go through the different components here and wait to try the Libby app until you are wrapped up with us this morning. So after we get through our getting started session, that's when you should try out Libby on your own. For now, just make sure you're not missing anything. We also live off of feedback. We want to make sure our presentation is growing and evolving to give everyone exactly what they're looking for. So if you need to hop off early for any reason, or when I end the meeting, a survey is going to pop up in your browser. If you can fill that out for us, let us know what you liked and what we could do differently. Marissa and I would both greatly appreciate that. And last, but certainly not least, we will be connecting iPads this morning into the Zoom meeting so you can see Libby in her app glory. But sometimes when we do that, Zoom cuts off part of our display. I have some directions here that we'll be sending out just in case you need to adjust that screen so you can see everything we're showing off. All right, I can stop using my speed talk voice to get through the housekeeping. This morning, we will be taking you through the basics, at least right now. I'm going to start by showing you how to download the app and get signed in for the first time. And then I'll hand it off to Marissa and she'll take us through those very basics of navigating the app. Now, Marissa and I are both using iPads this morning, but the Libby app is a free app available for download on Apple mobile devices and Android mobile devices. So that's your iPhones, your iPads, your smartphones, like, well, there's so many Androids, I couldn't list them all, but things like Samsung's, your typical smartphone and tablets that you'd get just about anywhere. You can also use Libby on your computer if you want to do that by going to libbyapp.com in your browser. Just a reminder, there's not an app to download on the computer. That's only on your mobiles like smartphones and tablets. All right, I'm all connected. So I'm going to first look for where to go and download the app. So for Apple users, we'll be headed to the blue App Store icon. If you're on an Android device, you'll be going to the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or multicolored triangle, just wherever you would typically go when you need to download a new app. I'm going to start by tapping on my search bar. And then I'm just going to type in Libby and then tap on enter or search in my keyboard, because when I do that, Libby's usually the first result that pops up. So we can see Libby by Overdrive. It's that maroon app icon with Libby reading her book. And we'll download it. So you'll notice on my screen it says open. That's because I already have Libby downloaded on my device. But as you're getting downloaded for the first time, yours will either say get or install. So once again, Libby's completely free. So you'll tap get or install and let that app download. You might need to sign in with your App Store password, so just keep that nearby. But once the app is all downloaded, we'll leave our App Store and head over and find that freshly downloaded app on our screen. So we're looking for that same maroon app. And when we tap in for the very first time, Libby has a few questions to help us find our library and get signed in with our card. So we only have to do this the first time we download the app, and then going forward, the information will be stored, so that way we can dive right back into whatever we're reading or listening. If you want to add Libby on multiple devices, you'll have to do this step every time you download the app new, but then once again, it will store an update, and I'll even show you a little shortcut for that. So let's answer question number 1. Yes, I have a library card. And now for the very first time that we're setting up Libby, we have to find our library location. I always use this one. I'll search for a library and then I type in my zip code. So this is what we'll do in a second. But if you're going to set up Libby on a second or third device, when you're setting up that second or third device, once it's that time, you'll use copy from my other device. So this is what you're going to use. It'll pull in all of your library card information. And at this step, you'd be done. But that'll be when you get to additional devices. So let's continue with our first here. I'm going to tap on, I'll search for a library. And I like this option because I can just type in my zip code and it will pop up exactly what I'm looking for. And right here we can see it, North Andover Stevens Memorial Library. If this is your branch, great. What you're really looking for is this up here, Merrimack Valley Library Consortium. This is the name of your digital collection and what Marissa and I are going to refer to for most of this presentation. So your digital collection, all of your individual branches that you were putting in the Q&A for us, all feed into this one digital collection. So the physical branch doesn't matter so much in this case within Libby because we are focused on that larger digital group. So I'm going to tap and choose that box. We're almost done. We have to sign in with our library card. I'm going to just tap on enter library account details. And now all you should have to do is type in your library card number. No dashes or spaces, just the numbers. They usually appear under a barcode. If you don't have a library card yet, or if it's been a while since you've used it and you have trouble signing in, just reach out to your friendly neighborhood librarians and they'll be able to pop that in for you and get it all set. So as long as I typed in this number correctly while I was talking, when I tap sign in, we should see, there we go, I did. My card has appeared here on the screen. And now I know I can borrow 5 loans at a time and place 10 holds. Now this is just in Libby, so this is just those digital materials. It won't affect your physical materials. I'm going to tap on next. And now I am connected to my library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Now, this is typically where I'd hand it off to Marissa, but we are in Massachusetts today, so we actually have a special bonus tip for you that we're going to start off with right away. So your state is a wonderful state for libraries because with just your one library card that goes to Merrimack, you have access to a total of 8 libraries within the state. Your one card will allow you to sign into the 7 other libraries that you wouldn't normally have access to and borrow from their digital collections as well. So this is a huge benefit if your library doesn't have a book you're looking for, or if it's a really long wait list, you can always kind of try your luck at one of the other libraries in the system. Now, this is mainly for the recording because, of course, Marissa is going to explain what all of these buttons mean in just a minute here. But when you're ready to add additional cards, we're going to tap on the Libby menu. And then under your libraries, we're going to tap on Add a Library. From here, this is where we need to remember our digital collection name. So I'm actually just going to type in Merrimack. And it only brought up 2 today. So you're going to have a total of 8 libraries you can look for. And we had this happen the other day in Massachusetts. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to type in sales. So just follow these steps. And now you can see the other libraries you have access to. So they are Sales, Clams, C.W. Mars, Boston Public, Old Colony, Noble, and then Minuteman. And of course, you've got yours right here. You might want to add all of these. I know I would, so you'd have access to all of those different cards. So just, you'll have to do them one at a time. This part's a little labor intensive, but that's okay. So just keep in mind, you'll do this and then it'll pay off in dividends afterwards. So we're on this page, we have to add our library card. We'll tap on I'm visiting from another library. And then we just need to choose, there we go, Merrimack Valley from the drop down. And then like we just did, all you need to do is type in your library card number and tap sign in. So my final piece of advice, do this on your first device first. If you're going to put all 8 cards in, do that first and then wait to set up Libby on another device. So that way she can pull all of those cards onto the next device, and those will be even quicker. So that wraps up the download and sign in process, with the extra bonus of adding additional cards from other libraries within the state. I'm now going to hand it off to Marissa, and she'll be taking us through the basics from searching for titles, borrowing and placing holds, adjusting appearance settings, and looking at our notification preferences. Marissa's going to be in a demo library this morning from Overdrive. We just like to make sure that we don't borrow anything you might be waiting for, but everything will work exactly the same. Looks like Marissa's all connected, so I'm going to let her dive right in. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
All right, thank you, Joe. So before I jump into the content here, I just want to remind everyone one more time about how sometimes that sometimes Zoom will mess up the ratio on your end. So you might not be able to see the bottom of my screen right now. So at the very bottom of my screen, you should see 5 icons in a navigation bar. There should be a magnifying glass, a library card, the Libby menu, so that Libby icon, a little stack of books that looks like it's sitting on a shelf, and then a clock. If you cannot see those, then Joe just put out the instructions in chat. You can find chat in Zoom's meeting controls, and then you can follow those directions so that you can change your Zoom ratio. It takes 2 seconds to do. It's not super hard or anything. So make sure you can see the bottom of my screen there. Otherwise, you'll get a little lost today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. We are going to talk about all of these icons down at the bottom of my screen at some point in the presentation today, but I'm actually going to start off to the left of the Libby icon. So that Libby icon is directly in the center there. We're going to go to the left on my library card. Right now, it's 2 shades of purple, so you should be able to see that library card there. The library card icon is what you're going to tap when you want to browse your entire library's digital collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So the key word here is browse. This is not where you're going to type in something specific. You're going to see everything that the library has to offer when you tap on that library card icon. So up at the top of the page here, that's where you're going to see some filters. This is one of my favorite ways to browse for a book, because we could tap these filters, maybe just added. These are going to be books that your library just purchased and added to their digital collection. Popularity, of course, is to find all those new releases. Available now is a great one to go to because it doesn't have any books that require a wait list. It's all going to be titles that you can borrow right away. And then right below that, I think the most popular option here is subjects. We saw earlier in the polls, we had some thriller lovers, some mystery lovers, biographies. Subjects is what you're going to tap if you want to look for a book with a specific subject. So those filters are a really great place to go. But there's a lot more goodies on this page as well. When you scroll down, you'll see some catalog guides. Now, these actually differ from library to library, so yours are going to look a little different than mine. But it's another way that the library is kind of pointing you in the direction of certain content based on a specific criteria. So it's just another way that the library is going to get you to find your next great read. As we scroll down the page, that is when you are going to see some curated collections that your library puts together for you. Now, these are just like if you walked into the physical library during the summer and there was an end cap displaying some beach reads, and then in the winter that changed to cozy mysteries or holiday recipe books. This is just the digital version of that. So these are going to change all of the time with the year. Right now it's Pride Month. You're likely going to see some Pride collections displayed from your library. So these are going to change all the time. And again, it's just another way that the library is trying to help you find a great book to spark interest. So as I said, that library card icon down in the navigation bar, that's what you're going to tap when you want to browse the entire collection and find a book to borrow. If you're looking for something specific, like you want to search for a specific title or a specific author, that is when you're going to tap on the magnifying glass instead. So I'm going to tap on that magnifying glass. It's the first icon there in my navigation bar. And then, like I said, here is where we can type in a title or an author, excuse me, or even a magazine or series name. So I know we had quite a few people who indicated they like biographies. So I'm going to go ahead and search for the biography about Ulysses S. Grant, and then go ahead and tap on search. So when you search for a book, there's a few things that I want to point out. I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit. The first is how you can visually tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So libraries actually purchase books in these formats separately. So they purchase them in the ebook format and then in the audiobook format. And the reason I explain this is so that you know that you can't borrow a book and then switch it to an audiobook, or borrow an audiobook and then switch it to an ebook. They are what they are. And so when you're looking for an audiobook, be on the lookout for a square jacket cover. I always like to say a little hint that I always keep in mind is that it looks like a CD. You listen to CDs, so that square jacket cover is going to be a book that you listen to. Right underneath that, you'll see a pair of headphones, and then the duration of the audiobook as well. So this is a big one right here. I would be listening to it for quite a while. If you are looking for an ebook instead, so a book that you're going to read, you are going to look for a rectangular jacket cover. So it quite literally looks like a book. Books are rectangles typically. So when you're looking for that book format, you're going to look on Libby for the rectangular jacket covers. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out here. The second thing I want to point out is how you can tell the difference between books that are available to borrow right now and books that you will have to place a hold on. So you can see here this ebook version right next to the jacket cover. It says borrow. That means it is available to borrow right now. We could borrow it and begin enjoying it right away. If the title says place hold instead, that means there's currently a wait list. So someone is reading every copy that the library owns, and you'll have to join the wait list. It is super, super easy. Let's walk through it. All you have to do is tap on place hold. That's going to bring you to the confirmation page. And on the confirmation page, it will tell you approximately how long the title will take before it's your turn. And then you can tap on place hold to confirm. All right, now Libby is giving us a few different options here for what to do next. I'm going to go ahead and say keep browsing. And what that's going to do is take us right back to the same search page here. So keep browsing. You can see now the audiobook here is on my hold shelf. So let's walk through the borrowing process. I could go ahead and tap on borrow right next to the jacket cover. But if you don't know what a book is about yet, all you have to do is tap on the jacket cover itself, and that's going to bring you to the details page. So you get to find out all about what that book is about, and then Libby will give you the option to borrow from this screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tap borrow here, and that takes me to the borrowing confirmation page. So up at the top of the borrowing confirmation page, you will see that we're borrowing this for 21 days. That is the default lending period at your library. So books will automatically return on their due dates, and you never have to worry about late fees. Some of those additional libraries that you have access to with your one library card, they might have a shorter lending period by default, but you can change some of those by tapping on that day limit there, and you'll have a little menu to switch between. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, we're already at 21 days though. That's the default at Merrimack. So I'm going to stick with 21 and then come down to the bottom of the screen and tap on borrow to confirm. Now Libby is downloading the title for offline use. And Libby does this automatically when you're on Wi-Fi by default. And what this means is as soon as we get a check mark in this circle here, we'll no longer have to be on Wi-Fi or use cellular data. So we could put our tablet or phone into airplane mode, go up in a plane, we'll still be able to read our book. Out in the woods without cell phone service, we'll still be able to enjoy our book. So really nice feature there. Once I have it downloaded, that's when we can go ahead and tap on Open Book. And this is going to give us the option to read the book in the Libby app or deliver it to a Kindle device so we can enjoy it on a Kindle device instead. So if you're someone who has a Kindle device that they prefer to read on, what you're going to do is tap on Kindle here, and then Libby's going to walk you through the Kindle process. It's very simple, and it will require you to use your credentials for Amazon. So make sure you have your email address and your password for Amazon, and then it's a really simple process from there. I'm going to go ahead and open the book in the Libby app so I can show you a few key reading features about Libby. So when you first open a book, up at the top and the bottom of the screen, you'll have some menus. The bottom is going to always show you your reading progress. So it's taken a second to load here, but it'll say page 1 and then the total number of pages here on the right side of the screen. When you want those menus to drop out of the way, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. Those will disappear. And then tap in the center of the screen and they will reappear. So I'm going to drop them out of the way here, and then we're going to page forward throughout the book by tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to just tap, 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 and I'm going to actually go quickly here and get to a big old chunk of text. So this one has a long intro there. There we go. So when you are reading, one of the great things about the Libby app is that you can customize your reading appearance to meet your personal needs. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to do that. First, what you're going to do is tap on the center of the screen to make those menus reappear. And then up at the top, you'll see the A icon. That A stands for appearance. So when you tap on that A, it's going to bring up the appearance menu for you. There are 3 things you can change within your appearance. The first is the text scale. First and most important, I think. You can make every book a large print book if you need. All you have to do is use the slider to increase or decrease the font size. Next, we have our lighting. So I'm currently in bright mode. That is Libby's default, but you have the option to go to sepia mode. Joe, can you still hear me? I'm getting a little error here. Okay, just wanted to make sure there. All right, so I'm currently in bright mode. That's Libby's default. I also have a sepia and a dark mode as well as the options here. So really nice for reading at night and not bothering your partner while they're sleeping, or just easier on your eyes. Last, we have book design. So I'm currently in Publisher's default. These are actually the different fonts that you can put Libby into. I always like to point out this Open Dyslexic font. because it may help some users with dyslexia to read. Now I am going to go ahead and actually put these all back to my default here for my next presentation. And the reason I do this is because these settings are sticky. And what I mean by sticky is you're only going to have to set these preferences up once per device. And then moving forward, Libby's going to remember those settings and deliver titles to you with those settings in place. So you're not going to keep having to change your font size or change your dark mode. It will automatically come to you with those in place there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and tap on hide. And that's just going to drop this menu out of the way. And then up in the top left-hand corner, that back button is how you're going to be able to leave your books. So just remember, if you are currently reading a book, those menus aren't there. You just have to tap in the center of the screen. They will reappear, and then you'll have that back button up in the top left-hand corner here. So I'm going to tap on back, and this brings us to the shelf. So I promised everyone I'd talk about all those icons down at the bottom here. So let's go ahead and move to the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to reorient you. So down at the very bottom of the screen, the first thing I want to point out is this Now Reading bar. The Now Reading bar is Libby's way of giving you easy access to the last book that you had open in the Libby app. So I could just tap this bar here and jump right back into the book that I was reading. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this for now so that we can see the full navigation bar. So we started out the presentation to the left of the Libby icon. That Libby icon, remember, very, very center. We started out on our library card directly to the left of that. That library card is where you go to browse your library's entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. So you're kind of walking around the library, seeing what they have to offer. Then we went over to the magnifying glass. That's what we tapped on when we wanted to search for something specific. So you can type in a title, author, magazine, or series name. We are now to the left, or to the right, I'm sorry, of the Libby icon. So if we come over, that Libby icon's in the center, go directly to the right, and that is where our shelf is. So the shelf is this little stack of books that looks like it's sitting on a shelf. And your shelf is going to be where you can find all of your loans and holds. These are going to be the current books that you have borrowed and the current books that you have placed on hold. So these filters here, you could look at those individually. On the main page, it's just going to show you a little mixture where Libby organizes them by recent loans and then books that you left off in down below. So here you can see Grant, the book that I just borrowed with you earlier in the presentation. And then right next to it, I have an audiobook as well. I borrowed this a few days ago. I'm going to go ahead and open it in Libby by tapping this button here. All right, so up at the top of the screen, we can see the reading progress. I'm 44% of the way through this audiobook here. And down at the bottom of the screen, we have our player. So when you want to start listening to your audiobook, just tap on play. That will begin the narration. Oh, it's coming out of my computer speaker, so sorry about that. That must be the error that my computer was giving to me. But the one thing that I want to point out here at the bottom in the player is Libby is designed to play audiobooks in the background of your phone. And what that means, or your tablet, any of the devices. So what that means when I say it's designed to play in the background is you can begin playing your audiobook and then minimize the app and open up another app, and you should still be able to hear your audiobook. You could also put your screen to sleep on your device, and you should still be able to listen to your audiobook as well. So when you're done listening to your audiobook for the time being, what you're going to need to do is tap on pause. And I'm not going to press play again so that you're not hearing the audiobook over me, but tap on pause. That's going to stop the narrator from talking. And then you can move on with your day and you don't have to worry about losing your place in the audiobook. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to leave this audiobook now. I'm going to tap on back up in the top left-hand corner here. And that takes me back to my shelf. And let's go ahead and reorient again. So let's go down to the bottom of the screen. You'll see I have a new now reading bar. First it was Grant, now it is the new audiobook that I opened. So remember, it's always the last book that you open in Libby for easy access. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this here again. So our shelf, again, is our current borrowed books, so our current loans and our current holds, the books that we are currently waiting for on that waiting list. Right next door, that clock icon, that is our timeline. So I always like to say, think of your timeline as your history, as your past. When you think of timelines, you think of the past, right? So this is going to be all of the past books that you had on loan or hold, and then renewals and returns. So shelf, current, clock, past, okay? Lastly, we're going to talk about the Libby menu, that very center icon. You got a sneak peek earlier with Joe when we were adding that additional library. So the Libby menu there in the center, you can think of as your app settings. So I'm going to tap on the Libby menu here. And the first thing I want to point out is up at the top, this is where your in-app notifications are going to appear. I don't have any notifications right now, so it's just showing me my notification menu. And I'm going to hop in here to show you what that's going to look like. But I do want to mention that Libby is actually going to bring your notification menu to you the first time you place a hold. So you're not going to have to come find it like I'm doing right now. Libby is going to make it a little easier on you by bringing it to you. But I want to show you what that's going to look like. So notifications are how you can be alerted about important events within the Libby app. And there's 3 ways to be notified up at the top that you can choose from. The first way is ignore. So if you're not interested in that particular notification, you can go ahead and ignore it. The second way is a menu badge. And your menu badge is going to be an in-app notification. That means you have to open up Libby to see it. And it will actually be a little red bubble on Libby's head. It'll appear kind of like my little blue dot there, and except it will be red and it will say a number inside. And then when you tap on the Libby menu, it'll appear in that box that I pointed out at the top of the Libby menu. So again, you have to have the Libby app open to see that option. If you're not going to open Libby every day, I recommend going with the blue notification option. That's going to be a push notification, and that will appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be looking at Libby, but you could also be reading the news or browsing Facebook, online shopping, etc. And the notification will still appear on your device's screen, kind of like a text message would. So this is a good option if you're not going to open Libby every day, so you're not missing any of those important events. So those are the 3 ways you can be notified. Right underneath that, we have all of the things that you can be notified about. The most important is hold ready. And I'm going to harp on this a little bit. Joe always makes fun of me, but I think it's super important. So the reason I think it's important to be notified when your hold is ready is because when it's your turn on a wait list, you will have a 3-day period to take action. In that 3-day period, that book is in limbo, and you are the only person who can take action. And the 3 actions that you can take during that 3-day period are to borrow the book, to cancel the hold, or to have the hold delivered later. Delivered later is a really nice feature if you get busy and you're not going to have time to read that book, but you don't want to lose your place in line. You can set a time period to stay at the top of the wait list. People will skip over you in line until that time period ends. And then once that time period ends, you'll be the next person in line to get the book. So that limbo period, you have 3 days to take those 3 actions. If you don't take an action in those 3 days, Libby is going to automatically deliver the title later one time as a courtesy for you. So the next person in line will get the book, and then you'll be the next person in line after them. You'll have a second 3-day period where that book is in limbo. If you don't take action again, Libby's going to cancel your hold. That means you're going to have to go and rejoin the wait list, which puts you at the bottom. I hate when that happens when I waited a long time. So that's why I harp on it. And I think it's really important to make sure that you are getting alerted when it's your turn on the wait list. You don't want to miss any of those good books. So I'm going to come up to the top here and tap on back. We just have 2 more things to talk about here. The next is our libraries. So Joe, again, gave you a sneak peek earlier. If you add all 8 of those library digital collections, they will all appear here in a list. This is where you'll be able to jump between your libraries to see if maybe one has a copy of a book that the other doesn't. You can also add additional library cards from the same library too, if you have multiple people in your family who want to share a device and you don't want to be fighting over those loans or hold limits, just like my siblings certainly would have. Blood would be shed if my sister would have taken any of my 5 loans. So keep that in mind as well. Right down below that, the last thing we'll talk about is help and support. So this is where you can come get some help. When you tap on that, you'll find common solutions to frequently asked questions. You'll also find the other half of that copy to another device code that Joe showed at the very beginning. So there's 2 halves to that code. The first half is when you're setting up your device, and the second half is on your currently set up device, and that will be found here. Up at the top of the screen, you'll have a little field where you can type in questions or keywords. One feature that I don't talk about in our Getting Started with Libby session is returning books early. And the reason I don't do that is because I like to really prioritize the need to know features in this session. And because titles return automatically on their due date, I don't prioritize it here in this session, but I want to show you how you can find out more information. So I'm just typing in return here. I want to learn how to return early, and then I'm going to tap on search. Since I used a keyword, Libby's giving me some guesses to what I'm asking, and that's what I'm looking for, returning books. So I'm going to tap on that. And then Libby's telling me, don't worry about it. They return on their due date. But then right below, she also gives me the directions on how to return early if needed. So if you can't find the answers you're looking for that way, the last thing you can do is come down to Ask Our Support Team. This is going to connect you with Overdrive's technical support specialists via email. They are Libby experts. There's not a question you could throw their way that they aren't going to know the answer to. Pardon me. And they can also give you any troubleshooting steps if you ever run into any issues or bugs in the Libby app. So they can really help you out when you're in need. All right, those are all of the steps that you need to know to get started with the Libby app. I'm going to let Joe take back over on the screen here and get us into some next steps.
Awesome. Thank you, Marissa. And thank you, everyone, for your patience as we went through our getting started portion this morning. We appreciate you joining us, and we know it's a lot of info to take in. We will be getting started with our deep dive session in a few minutes here at 10:45. But some reminders: you can ask Marissa and I anything throughout this entire webinar, and you can even ask questions anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. And at 10:45, you can join us for our deep dive. Feeling confident, join us for that deep dive where we share our favorite tips and tricks and take a deeper look at the Libby app. Now, we recommend sticking around for this if you are still ready to pull in more info. If you're at your max or if you're out of time for the morning, no worries. As a reminder, you will receive an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to our recorded presentation. So you'll be able to review that, kind of take any time that you need, go over anything that you might have missed if you had to hop off early, or if you, kind of needed a little break and could pull in that info later. So feel free to use the next 4 minutes or so. We'll get started at 10:45. If you need to get up, get a glass of water or some more coffee, and we'll get started then. Once again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be here. So if you have questions, now's a great time to send those through. Marissa and I will take some time to answer those. And there's actually one that I will draw attention to in just a second here. But Charlotte just sent one through. This is a great question. If I can't finish my book in time, can I renew it? Now, the answer to that is yes. Just like with your physical library collection, you can renew titles within Libby. Of course, just like with your physical collection, it depends if someone's waiting for it. So if there is a long waiting list, you won't be able to renew, but Libby will prompt you to place a hold. So that way, once that wait is up, the book will be sent back to you. And the great thing within Libby is that she remembers where you left off. You don't have to use bookmarks or anything like that. If the book returns, when it checks back out to you, it will open up right where you left off. So if you were 80 pages in, that's where you'll start. If you want to renew a title in Libby, you go to your shelf, and next to that book, you tap on Manage Loan and then Renew. Now you can only do that 3 days before it's due. And Libby will tell you that. It'll say something along the lines of, oh, it's still too early to renew. You can do that in a couple days. So, great question. That's also one we'll revisit at the end of our deep dive session. We have 4 tips and tricks we'll go through with everyone. We'll save some time where we'll do live answers and then show those steps on the device. So we'll make sure we bring that one back up. So it's included in the recording. And thank you for that, Charlotte. We appreciate it. All right, well, we've got about 1 minute before we get started again. Thank you all for joining us. If you are hopping off, just a reminder to fill out the survey that pops up in your browser. Marissa and I greatly appreciate any info we can for how to keep doing what you like and improve what you weren't as much of a fan of. And we're at that 10:45 mark, so I'm going to get us rolling here. Welcome. If you are just joining us, my name is Joe, and I'm here with Marissa. We are the Digital Bookmobile team, and normally we tour the US and Canada in person, but for this year, we will be staying safe at home. And it's just starting to storm here, so if you hear thunder in the background, you got some free ambiance today. Welcome to our Libby tips and tricks session, where we take a deeper dive into 4 of our favorite features of the library reading app, Libby. Now, since we had a few people join us at that 10:45 mark, just a couple housekeeping items I wanted to cover. We do have the closed captions enabled for our webinar, so if you need to turn those on, tap the box that says CC in your Zoom meeting controls. You can also make some adjustments there. And if they are in your way at all, you should be able to just drag those out of your way with either the mouse or your finger if you're on a mobile device. You can move those around on your screen to a more convenient spot. You can ask questions throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A button, also in your meeting controls. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be responding. This session, we will also be saving some questions to answer live once we hit our live demo portion. So there will be a section of the program where we reconnect the device, have some questions popped up, and we'll show those steps live on screen. We are recording. These I'm going to go through a little quicker We are recording and you'll receive an email tomorrow from Zoom with a link to that recording. You have 30 days to watch and download it if you'd like to keep it permanently, otherwise it does expire. We also recommend that since you can review that recording, you just watch as we go through these 4 tips and tricks and wait to try them out until after we wrap. If you could fill out our survey when the meeting ends, or if you hop out early, it will pop up in your internet browser. Just let us know what you liked and what we can improve on. And then last but certainly not least, Marissa is going to connect her iPad here in just a couple seconds. Sometimes Zoom cuts off part of her screen. If you need those instructions, I'll be sending them out in just a second here in the chat. And if you don't see those steps, pose it as a question and I'll answer it there as well. So without further delay, today we will be talking about finding and reading magazines, our favorite ways to navigate through. Then we'll look at finding books we like faster by some of our favorite ways to filter and refine lists. Then we'll talk about tags and all of our favorite reasons we love them. And then we'll wrap up talking about notes and highlights. So I'm going to let Marissa get connected here. And once she's all set, she'll dive right on in. I'll be sending out those instructions if you can't see her full screen. And with all of that said, thank you so much for joining us. And Marissa, it's all yours.
All right, let's just jump right in here. So the first tip of this session we're going to talk about is reading magazines. So I'm currently on my shelf because I already have the magazine that I'm going to talk about downloaded. Magazines are image heavy, so they take a minute to download, and I didn't want to slow down our presentation today. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up this magazine here that I already have on my shelf. So when you open a magazine, you'll have some menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. This bottom menu is going to have some thumbnails that will show each page of the magazine. I always like to joke, if you have excellent vision, like better than 20/20, you can use these to navigate throughout the magazine if you'd like. I always like to just use these 2 other ways that I'm going to show you, but that is an option you have available to you if you would like. I'm going to drop the menus out of the way by tapping in the center of the screen, and then start paging forward by tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen. So my mom, she likes to look at every page of a magazine. She doesn't care if it is an ad. That doesn't bother her. So if that is you as well, then tapping and swiping and paging forward that way is going to be your best option there. Now, if you're a little like me and you only want to look at specific articles and skip all over those ads, then what I like to do is navigate until I find the table of contents in a magazine. It might be called a masthead or referred to that way. And these are all links. So we can tap any of these articles here, and that will just jump us straight over to that page. So let's go ahead and tap on this article here. And you'll see it took me all the way over to that article. So I skipped over to page 40. And now down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this icon here. It's a black circle with a page inside of it. When you tap on that article or on that icon, it's going to bring up the article in this really, really nice menu here. So once you have this menu open, that is when you can start scrolling. All of your text is going to be the same size. You're not having to zoom in and out of the page like you would in a older version of Libby. You had to zoom in and out. This is going to be a nice menu that actually carries on over the reading settings that you made in your ebook experience. So if you borrowed an ebook and then changed your font size or your text scale, then that's going to carry on over into your magazine experience, and that custom font size is going to appear here in this menu. If you, for some reason, don't want to borrow ebooks and you haven't made those appearance settings yet, then all you have to do is tap on this A icon and you'll have the option to change your text scale there. So in addition to this menu being really nice because you get to scroll through, the other thing that I love and my mom hates is this icons over here on the left side of the screen. You see it's arrows pointing forward and backward. When you tap on these arrows, it actually skips over all of the ads and just takes you backwards an article or forwards an article. So I'm tapping and then I jinx myself because it showed an ad. Tapping backwards, here is the next article, and I can begin enjoying that as well. So forward, same thing. You'll go forward. I guess this one ad is going to show up. I don't know exactly what ads, why some of them get skipped and some of them don't. It might be a bug. I'm going to talk to someone about that. But you'll get to just skip over those and go to the next article here. In the very center, that looks like a table of contents. So you can tap on the table of contents there and then choose an article from this list to skip over that way. So I'll just go back here and jump to that article as well. So a couple different ways that you can navigate here in the magazine experience. And it's all up to you if you want to skip those ads or just read or read the articles. When you're done in this menu, all you have to do is tap on back. That's going to drop the menu off the screen. And then it'll take you back to that traditional magazine view. And to leave the magazine, all you have to do is tap in the center of the screen. And you'll see that back button up at the top. So I'll tap on back and we're back on my shelf. So that was tip number 1, navigating throughout magazines and the different ways that you can do that. We're now going to go ahead and move on to tip number 2, and that's all about filtering and refining lists so that you can find the books that you like faster. So for this tip, I'm actually going to go down in the navigation bar and tap on my library card to view my library's digital collection, the entire digital collection. And the first thing I want to talk about is how to set an app-wide preference. So I'm going to scroll down just a tiny bit here. And I'm going to mute for a second and clear my throat so I don't do it right in your ears. One moment. Sometimes talking for hours, I get all dry, but we're good to go now. So what I wanted to point out were these catalog guides. If you remember, I talked about them in our Getting Started session. I said, these are all going to differ from library to library. One button that we're all going to have, regardless of what library card you have attached, is Preferences. And when you tap on Preferences, this is going to allow you to set an app-wide filter that's saved and applied to all lists in the Libby app. And what's really great about Preferences is you can set this filter, close down the app, come back a day, a week, a month from now, and Libby's going to remember that preference and continue filtering your lists. So why would you set a filter that is applied to all lists? Well, my favorite way is language. I can only speak English and read in English well enough to only want to see English titles show up in my searches and browsing experience. So I'm going to come over to language, and instead of any language, I'm going to ask Libby to only show me English titles by tapping on English. Some other filters that are popular that we see out on the bookmobile quite frequently are format. Perhaps you are someone who only wants to read books, you don't want to listen to books. That's when you would set a book preference. Vice versa, if you only want to listen to books and you don't want to read any books, then you can set an audiobook preference. That way you're only seeing audiobooks when you search or browse for titles. And then lastly, a very popular one as well is audience. So anyone who has some kiddos, what you can do is instead of all, if they have their own device and you want to make sure they're only seeing age appropriate content, then you can go ahead and set a juvenile or young adult preference, and that way it's filtering out all of that adult content. So preferences, really, really great to filter out any of the content you're not interested in. I'm going to go ahead and apply my English preference here. You'll see Libby refreshes. I'm going to scroll back down. And now Libby is saying over next to preferences that I have one preference set. And the reason Libby does this is so that you know that there's something filtering out of all of your searching and browsing. This is important to know because let's say The Great Gatsby, that is a book that every single library has a copy of, but maybe you search for The Great Gatsby and it's not showing up. It's likely that you have a preference set that is filtering out The Great Gatsby in your searches, and that's why you can't find it. So this little one here is a good indicator you have a preference set and it's filtering some stuff out. So just keep that in mind. I always like to warn people because they're like, I can't find The Great Gatsby. And it's because they have a juvenile preference set. All right. So now let's talk about how to find books faster. So for this, I'm going to give a little prompt here. Let's say I'm going on a road trip with my mom and we need to find a book to listen to on our road trip. And that road trip's going to be tomorrow. So the criteria I'm going to use for this is going to be an audiobook because we need to listen. We can't drive and read at the same time. Although my mom did used to be my audiobook when I was a kid. She would read us Goosebumps on our road trips. Now I'm grown up. We can both listen to an audiobook together. So let's go audiobook. I want that to be available now. I don't want to place a hold. I need this book tomorrow. I'm going to do a mystery thriller book. So that is going to be the genre we're looking for. And then I also want it to be a new release. So that's my 4 criteria: audiobook, available now, mystery thriller, and it needs to be a new release. So in our getting started session, I said these filters up at the top, really popular way to search, one of my favorite ways to start looking for a book. I'm going to go ahead and this is already one of our criteria, available now. This is going to be a full list of books we do not need to place a hold on. So I'm going to start my browsing here. I'm going to tap on available now. And up at the top, you can see I'm looking at available titles and they're all in English, remember, because I set that preference so that I'm only seeing English titles. And within this list, I have 37,000 books, 21,000 audiobooks, and 6 magazines. I could be looking for this book all day long. So let's start narrowing that down. I'm going to just look at the audiobooks by tapping on this button here. So this is going to filter out all of those ebooks and magazines. And now we're only looking at 21,000 audiobooks. Now I'm going to come over to the right side of the screen. You'll see refine here. This refine button, when you tap on it, your first thought is going to be, these are all the same categories that we just saw in preferences. So preferences are sticky and will continue to filter your lists. Like I said, you can close down your tablet or phone and come back a week from now, and they're still going to apply to all of your lists. Refining is temporary and for the search that you're making right at that moment. So this is going to stick and stay. This is going to allow you to set some filters that are temporary. And then the next time you look for a book, it's going to revert back. All right. So in refining, let's first choose our subject. I'm going to come down to subject and select mystery. That number has now dropped from 21,000 to 2,800. And we're looking at mystery titles. I'm going to come back to refine and I'm going to add that second subject now. I don't want just a mystery title. I want it to be a mystery thriller title. So I'm coming back to subject and I'm selecting thriller. Now that number has dropped from 2,000 to 500. The reason I like to show you this is so that you know that you can find niche subjects by adding additional subjects. You're not just limited to one broad subject. You can continue adding subjects to really narrow that list down. I've gotten to about 5 of subjects in one search before Libby's telling me that I'm looking for something too specific and books like that don't exist. But 2 to 3 generally are a good place to start. All right, so I have one more criteria I need to meet here. I'm going to come back to refine. And now at the bottom of this list, if you're on a smaller device, you might have to scroll a little bit. I'm going to tap sort by. And I'm going to sort this list by release date. Right now we're looking at popularity. I'm going to sort by release date, so all of the newest titles appear up at the top of the screen. And then as I make my way down this list, those will get older. So that is tip number 2, filtering and refining your searches to find the books you like faster. We started out our browsing experience here with over 70,000 titles. I was going to be here all day looking for a book. And now we have narrowed it down to 562. So maybe just a couple of hours instead of all day long. All right, so now let's move on to tagging titles. This is my favorite tip. I know I shouldn't choose favorites. It's like kids. Like I shouldn't be choosing favorite features in the Libby app as an employee, but this is my favorite. Tags are how you can organize books in the Libby app. So you can create wish lists, you can create history lists, you can mark titles as loved or hated. I even like to create little tags for all of the readers in my life. I keep track of books that I know they're going to like. I actually just bought 3 books that I tagged in the Libby app for Father's Day for my future father-in-law. So really, it's a really robust system. You can use them for whatever you want. You're not limited to anything other than your imagination here when you're creating these. And this is one of the biggest differences between Overdrive and Libby. In Overdrive, you have a wish list and a history. But in Libby, you have the tagging system where you can create as many tags as you'd like, and you can name them whatever you like. So let's go ahead and walk through the tagging feature. So when you're searching for books, what you're going to do is you'll see right under play or read sample, you'll see tag. And if you come across a book that you want to add to a tag list, all you're going to have to do is tap on tag. And here you can create a new tag or add it to an existing tag that you already have created. Regular tags are tags that don't have any special abilities. They're just tags that you create to keep your books organized. So here my regular tags are a wish list. And then I also made a cooking tag to keep track of some recipes that I like. Right under that, you'll see smart tags. These are tags that have special abilities. The first smart tag that you see here is a borrowed smart tag. It looks like a little receipt, kind of like when you go and borrow books from the library at the circulation desk, they might hand you a receipt on your way out listing all the books that you borrowed. This is just the digital version of that little receipt. And so this is going to attach itself to any books that you've borrowed in the Libby app. So it will do it automatically. You don't have to do anything other than borrow the book and it will attach itself. And I will show you how you can delete this if you're not interested in having that smart tag. Right below that, this is a notify me tag. And this is right now currently specific to magazines. So that's why I named mine magazines. But this is a great tag because what it will do is the first time you borrow a magazine, Libby will ask if you'd like to create a notify me tag. If you create that notify me tag, then every magazine you borrow thereafter, Libby will ask if you'd like to add it to your notify me tag. And any titles, any magazines titles that you add to your notify me tag, those are going to allow you to be alerted about new issues every time it comes into the library. So you're not going to have to keep going, type in the New Yorker, see if there's a new issue available. As soon as a new issue of the New Yorker is available in your library's collection, Libby's going to give you a notification about it. So really, really handy there. And you can name it whatever you want. Okay, so we're currently tagging when the stars go dark. I'm going to create a new tag for this to show you what that's going to look like. I'll tap on new tag. And you'll see here, I can name the tag and even add a description. I don't do that often. I usually remember what my tags are, but you have that option available to you. And you could add some smarts to it as well. I'm going to go ahead and name this tag. One tag that I like a lot is just splitting up my books by genre. I have to be in a certain mood to read a mystery title or a nonfiction title. So if I come across one of those while I'm searching for a different book and I want to save it for later, I'll just add it to that tag. So I'm typing in mystery, and then I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. And now you can see that tag has attached itself to when the stars go dark. Now, I like to point this out. It shows up right next to the jacket cover in your searches. And the reason that comes in handy is, let's say we're searching for this book for my mom and I come across The War Widow, and I see that it's added to my to be read list. So I, at one point, showed interest in this book. I added it to my wish list here. Instead of searching for a book for the next few hours, I will probably go ahead and borrow that instead. Cuts down the time I'm spending on searching for a book. Let's pretend that wasn't there, and I'm scrolling down this list further. Here I see my borrowed tag. That means I've borrowed this book in the past. I probably forgot about it. I read a lot, so I often forget what books I read, have to read the first 50 pages just to remember. But now I have that borrowed tag that shows me I've read it already. I can go ahead and skip it in that search and continue on looking for my book. So that is how you can create tags and then tag titles in your searches. Now let's go and see what those tag lists look like over on our shelf. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of the screen and I'm going to tap on shelf here. Up at the top of my shelf, you'll remember there's filters for loans and holds, and then your tags will show up right after that. If you can't see all of your tags, you just have to tap on more, and that's going to bring up your full list. So here are all 5 tags that I have, and I'm just going to tap into my wish list here to show you what that's going to look like. So here is my wish list. One thing that I like to point out on this page that comes in handy, especially for you lucky Massachusetts folks, is that if you tap on this little card icon, this icon actually appears all over the Libby app. You're going to get tired of seeing it, really. It's in your searches. It's on your shelf. It's everywhere that you look. You'll see this icon. If you tap on that icon, you will be able to see how many copies are available at each of your libraries. So let's say this is currently on a waiting list here at my library. I could come in here and see if those other 7 libraries have a copy available so I don't have to join a wait list. So that comes in really handy. You'll also be able to borrow or place a hold from this screen as well. I'm just going to tap right above it to make that drop away. Up at the top of the screen, you'll see this actions button on all of your tag lists. So if I tapped into my borrowed smart tag, I'd see this as well. If you tap on actions, this is where you can delete the tag. So if you don't want that borrowed smart tag, just go ahead and tap on delete tag, and that will get rid of it for you. You can also rename your tag and then export your tag. What export means is you can, instead of looking at it in the Libby app, you can send over your tag list in a text message or an email, or you could even print it out. So let's go ahead and export this tag. I'm going to tap on export tag. Libby's going to give me a few different options for what I want that tag to look like when I export it. I personally like table. You'll figure out which option works best for you. On the Bookmobile, we've seen it all. Once you're on your data export page, up at the very top of the screen in the right-hand corner, you'll see the share button. That share icon is universal. It's not specific to Libby. It looks like this in every app that you'll open. So if you want to share this data export page, you just have to tap on that icon there and then tap on message or mail if you want to send it in an email. And then you'll have that option to print as well. If you're on a smaller screen, you might have to scroll down a little bit, but you could print out your tag list, take it to the library, and maybe try to find the physical copy of that book instead. So that is tags and how to create them and how to print them out. And again, my favorite tip, I just love it so much. I use tags all the time. They come in handy in more ways than you can imagine. All right, we're going to finish off today talking about notes and highlights. So this is a great tip for anyone who's in a book club, anyone who has some students that might be reading for school. Joe and I, we just like to annotate our books for fun. And so maybe you're like that as well. I'm going to go ahead and open up Pride and Prejudice here, a book I've annotated before, a book that Joe has annotated probably many times. He took a whole class on Jane Austen when he was in college. And I'm already in my text, or have some highlights on my screen here. So I'm going to jump ahead. All right. So when you come across a passage that you want to highlight and reference later, what you're going to do is start at the beginning of that passage or sentence. I'm going to go ahead and do this passage here, this second paragraph. I'm moving my mouse slightly to the left, but only so that you can see what happens when I hold my finger on the word he. So I'm taking my finger on the iPad screen here, and I'm tapping and holding my finger on he. Don't tap quickly. It's going to turn the page. As soon as your finger hits the screen, leave it on the screen, and then start dragging it across the screen until the full passage that you want highlighted turns blue. Once the full passage is highlighted, that's when you can lift your finger up off the screen and you'll have the ability to highlight. So we could tap on highlight or even choose some colors here to stay organized. Let's go ahead and pick green. Once your highlight is locked in, all you have to do is tap on it to add a note. So I have actually written full paragraphs here for some book clubs that I'm a part of. For the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a note and then tap on save. And now I'm going to page forward. So I'm going to show you how you can find those notes later. So let's say I want to reference a note that I made earlier in the book. What I'm going to do is tap on the center of the screen here. That's going to bring up our menus. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see an icon that kind of looks like 3 bookmarks in a row. I'm going to tap on that. This is going to drop down a full list of all of the notes and highlights that you've made in the book. You can see here all of the past presentations I've made. I'm going to go ahead and tap on this highlight here that I made in chapter 4. And it drags me back to that page and I can see that full highlight. And now I just need to tap on the highlight to drop the note down and be able to see what I said about that. So I realized that sometimes you'll make notes and highlights in a book and then it returns to the library and maybe it was a popular title, so it has a 3-week waiting list, but you really want to look at those notes and highlights right now. I'm going to show you how to do that. There's 2 different ways. So first, I'm going to just leave this current book that I'm in. So I'm going to tap on the center of the screen and tap back here up in the left-hand corner. And I'm taken back to my shelf. So when you want to reference some notes that you've made in a book that is returned to the library, what you're going to need to do is go to its details page within the Libby app. And there's a few ways you can do that. I showed how to get to your details page in the beginning, the first presentation we had today. So searching for the title and tapping on the jacket cover will get you to the details page. I'm actually going to do it a little bit easier here for me. I'm going to go over to my borrowed smart tag. Remember, it automatically applies to any books that we've borrowed within the Libby app. And then up here, I'm going to use some filters. So I know it was an ebook that I made the notes in. I'm going to tap on my ebook filter. And then I'm going to find it in this list here. There we go. The guest list. I know I've made notes and highlights in this. So I'm just going to tap on the jacket cover here. So you just need to get to the details page. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. And then on your details page, you'll see the reading journey. Your reading journey starts as soon as you borrow a book, and then it captures all of the actions that you've taken with that book in your possession. I'm going to go ahead and tap on reading journey. When you're on your reading journey, the very first option you have is this actions button. You recognize it from our tag tip. If you tap on actions, you'll be able to export your reading data. So this is going to export your notes and highlights out of the Libby app. You just saw the steps for how to do that in tagging. So you can email this, text it, or print it out if you want to print out your notes and highlights. I'm going to go ahead and just tap right outside that box there and drop it out of the way. The second way that you can access your notes and highlights after a title has returned is on the same page here on our reading journey. If we scroll down, you'll see the timeline for this title. And you can see I have 3 highlights here. All I have to do is tap on those highlights, and Libby's going to show me the text that I highlighted, as well as the note that I made right below it. So 2 different options there for how to access those notes and highlights, even after the title has returned to the library and has a wait list. You don't have to lose out or miss out on seeing those. All right, so that is our last tip of the day. We're going to now get into a Q&A section. So I'm going to let Joe take back over here to jump us right in.
Thanks, Marissa. And once again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. That wraps up the demo for our tips and tricks session. We now have about 10-ish minutes left to go through any questions you might have, show off any answers live on screen. So take some time now and send those through in the Q&A. There's a few things we might go through that we've already answered. See, so I will be going, actually, Marissa, can you show us how to renew titles? But yes, send through your questions and we will answer them here live on screen. You can see the instructions. But of course, if you are hopping off before that, thank you for joining us. And remember, you'll get that email tomorrow with our full recording.
All right, so Joe wanted me to go through renewing. So he kind of talked through this earlier. If you come across a book on your device that you see it's going to go back to the library within 3 days, what you're going to do is tap on Manage Loan. And then you'll see the option to renew loan. So this isn't a clickable button for me yet because it's not 3 days before its due date. It's always going to be available to you 3 days or 72 hours before its due date. And then as Joe mentioned, if there is a waiting list, if someone's on a waiting list right behind you, you'll actually be prompted to place a hold instead of renew your loan. It will go to them first, and then it'll come back to you, and Libby will remember its spot. And you'll actually always know when that 3-day window is available because Libby will put it right bright red right over the jacket cover. It will say, are you ready to renew or do you want to renew? So you'll know when that 3-day window starts.
Awesome, thanks. I want to go over our adding other libraries stuff just one more time. We can do it kind of quickly here so you can add additional libraries that you have access to. Of course, this will be fully viewable in the recording when we did that earlier, but we're going to tap into the Libby menu. And then we're going to tap on Add a Library under Your Libraries. And then you'll be looking for, in this case, since we've hit a bug with your library name, we're going to type in sales. This is one of the names of the other libraries systems you have access to. And actually, then you'll be able to see all of the libraries you can borrow from. So you could tap on any one of these, except for Mary Mac, of course, because you're already signed in. But we can see right here, Noble. Then we're going to tap on I'm visiting from another library, and you'll enter, then you'll choose Mary Mac Valley from the dropdown, and then you just need to type in your library card. So you'll need to do this as many of the libraries as you'd like to add. So if you're only interested in adding 1 or 2 additional libraries, you'll have to do this 1 or 2 times. But if you're going to do what I would, you're going to have to enter it 7 times as you add those other libraries. And then all of your cards will appear under your libraries. And if you want to jump into a different digital collection and browse around with them, just tap on the name of the library. And then is there any limit to the number of renewals? There is not a limit to the number of renewals. So as you are welcome to renew a title as many times as you like. If you are, if you are busy and kind of waiting for it, you can always have your title delivered later, but you'll be able to see your number of loans. Yours, of course, is 5, and your number of holds, yours is 10. This is our demo card, which is why it's 100, because we're always sharing and checking out for sessions like this. But you have no limit on how many times you can renew an item.
While we're here, just a quick tip when you're looking at your library cards. So how I got here was in the Libby menu, see library cards. If you tap on this, this is how you can change your library card colors. So this is actually a pretty good tip for you because you'll have 7 library or 8 library cards attached, hopefully. If you tap on actions, you can change your library colors. And if 2 or 3 of the libraries that you have attached to Libby have similar colors and you get kind of confused about what library you're borrowing from, you can come in here and change those colors so that you can keep track better. This is also a handy tip if you have multiple people in your family sharing the same device and you want to make sure that, one person's is a certain color and the next person is 2 different other colors so that you're not stealing any of those loans or holds on that limit. Like I said earlier, blood would be shed if my sister had taken any of my loans when I was a kid. So if you have kids who will really fight to the death over books, then this is a good little tip for you as well.
Definitely another great tip there that we like to show off. And libraries sometimes pick the same colors, so you might not even know which card is which. I wanted to mention a question we got earlier. Why switch from Overdrive to Libby? Is Overdrive being replaced? Now, of course, our whole presentation today, from getting started through these tips and tricks, kind of covers some of the features that are really only in Libby. But I had a few things I just wanted to point out because this is a great question. It's a question we receive at least once or twice a week, if not a day. And it's a solid question. So we're from Overdrive. Libby is made by Overdrive, and the original Overdrive app was kind of our bread and butter. It was what built kind of ebooks and audiobooks for the library world. But we received a lot of feedback on the Overdrive app, some things that people didn't love about it and some things that we always wanted to change. And instead of making major overhauls within the Overdrive app, we built the Libby app from the ground up with feedback from users like you in mind. So all of the changes that happen within Libby are very mindful and very thoughtful of your experience as a reader. So some of the things that you've kind of seen, it's very easy to sign into the Libby app and get started reading right away. You can pick up your title simply by saying, I want an ebook, or I want an audiobook, or a magazine. There's no messy format choosing. It's just ebook, audiobook, magazine. You're diving right in. Especially like here in Mass, since you can borrow from 8 different libraries, all of the titles you borrow live on one shared shelf. You don't have to hop around to find where that book you borrowed is hiding. They're all in one convenient place. You have the ability to stream titles. So if you don't have to worry about your data limit, it's something that some people worry about, some people don't. Maybe your device is more concerned about storage than being connected to Wi-Fi or the internet. You don't have to download it on your device. You could just listen to it when you're connected to the internet. Marissa's actually showing us right here. So those check marks means it's downloaded for offline usage. But if you remove that download, you'll be able to still listen to it if you're connected either via your data, if you're on your smartphone, or via Wi-Fi on any of the devices you might be using. Of course, one of the biggest differences in Libby is tags. In Overdrive, as Marissa mentioned, you're limited to one wish list, whereas in Libby, you have your brain's the limit. As much creativity as you've got, whether it's creating tags for purchasing books for family and friends, like Marissa mentioned, or books you want to do a read along with for your grandkids over FaceTime, all of those options kind of there. And then one of the biggest ones that I, as an audiobook lover, Libby is kind of designed with audiobooks in mind, in the sense of, in Overdrive, it used to be multiple files. So if your download went a little wonky, or if your internet kind of timed out for a second, you might miss 3 whole chapters of your audiobook, and you wouldn't notice until you were listening. Whereas with Libby, if something goes wrong, you're not going to see that check mark. It's all one file, kind of compacted in a way that's easier to listen to, and you're never going to be missing anything. So a lot of great things there. I also wanted to point out, as for the Overdrive app, our long-term goal is to only offer Libby to eliminate any confusion and deliver a simplified app experience and message to everyone. So sometime in June, the Overdrive app will be removed from the Apple app and Google Play stores. Now, this is just so new people will only be downloading Libby, but the Overdrive app will continue existing at this time with no disruption. So you'll still be able to use it if you already have it downloaded, but you won't be able to download it new. And the last thing we'll just cover here for Candy is if you want to find magazines, ours will be named a little different on our screen here, but your library has a guide for all of your magazines. So from the library card, you can just scroll down a little bit underneath your logo. And in this guide, you'll see a button that says magazines on yours. Ours says new magazine room, but you have a magazine guide. And when you tap in, they will be presented usually in different sections here. Maybe there we go. Since we're in a demo library here, there's some test issues up. And then just like that, they're all going to be listed out. So you can find magazines a number of different ways, of course. If you wanted to search for a title, you could do that with the magnifying glass. If you just want to browse around and see what magazines your library has available, go to the library card tab and then tap on magazines in the guide list.
You could also go to available now. And the only reason I'm pointing this out is because what's awesome about magazines is that they are available always. So you never have to join a waiting list for magazines. Everyone could read the same magazine at the same time. And it also doesn't affect your loan or, well, you can't place a hold. So it doesn't affect your loan limit. So you have 5 loans that you can have on your library card. Maybe you have 5 books checked out and you see a magazine you want to borrow. You'll still be able to borrow that magazine. In fact, you could borrow 100 magazines and 5 books, and it's not going to stop you there. So if you went to available now and you tap into that, just kind of like I showed you in the getting started set or in the tip and trick for filtering or finding lists, just tap on magazines. We did audiobooks for my example. tap on magazines, and then you'll see those magazines listed out.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Thank you for all of these wonderful questions. And Marissa, thank you for your demonstrations today. I'm going to wrap us up here with a few reminders. Of course, I know I've mentioned it, but I can't mention it enough. You will receive an email around this time tomorrow morning from Zoom. It will have a link inside that says you can view our recorded session here. You have 30 days to view that recording starting today. After those 30 days, it will expire, but there is a button on that video player screen once you click through the link that says download. You can't miss it. So that way you can keep that video forever if you want to do that.
Wait, Joe, you said starting today, starting tomorrow. You'll get the email from Zoom starting tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes, but the countdown starts today.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Yes, you'll get an email tomorrow from Zoom that includes the link, and you can, of course, review that as much as you like within the next 30 days or download to keep it permanently. And of course, when I end the meeting here, a survey is going to pop up in your browser. If you could let Marissa and I know what you thought, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you have any notes of what we could do differently or what you'd like to see included, we'd greatly appreciate that. So with all of that said, thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, happy reading.
Happy reading.